Hey,
Hello, hello.
happy Thursday, Tino Luna.
Happy Thursday, almost Friday.
Almost Friday. That's right.
Hello.
It is a wonderful new year for me. I hiked up Camelback Mountain. Like they said that we would be able to share this. How do we share this with my friends,
Yeah.
Tino Luna?
Oh, here we go. We'll share.
Do we go to GeoPoint Data on Facebook or?
Yeah.
So everybody, thanks so much for coming. I'm going to let people start to join and look for how to share this thing in the first place. Sponsored. There it is. Oh, look at that. Share.
There it is.
So I'm not sure how to. Did you figure out how to share this thing?
No, I'm trying to.
There it is. At the bottom of, if you go to the GeoPoint Data's Facebook page, then you can, there's a share button underneath the image of our video. And
Okay.
so I'm going to share now publicly. Share now. And then share to my story. And then I'm going. Yeah, maybe that worked. Yeah, I think so.
I posted it to my Facebook page. I don't know how to move it over to Instagram, but.
Yeah, I don't either, but it's all right. It's going to be recorded and it'll be up for a long time. So.
There we go.
Cool. Well, then I appreciate you joining us. And as everybody's, Dom's saying, okay, cool. As everybody's joining us, we're here to say Happy New Year. And, there's a lot of changes happening in the real estate market. And Tino and I have been talking about those because we're friends. And we went to this really cool charity event over the weekend. Yes. And we're partners to the degree of working deals and working leads and dispositions together. So yes. we're here to talk about, tell me what we're going to talk about.
Sales management. So I don't know exactly everything that we're going to talk about, but in general, my specialty in real estate is sales, right? So sales, building a team, training VAs, being able to scale properly, stuff like that. And then, of course, I know creative finance at a high level.
Yes. So then we're going to talk about those things, and then we want to help, we want to inspire. It's the new year, and we want to say, hey, this is what was working, and this is not what's working not so well anymore. And so we want to kind of figure out like best practices and what's working for you to the degree that we can. So it's awesome. Help me understand. Give me some background before we get started.
Yeah. So overall background for me, I was born and raised in LA. Played baseball a lot of my life. After college, became a nurse and did that for a while. And then I got into real estate about 3.5 years ago. Learned the art of closing, right? So like I hopped on with a local investor here. I did a lot of cold calling for him for about a year, knocked a bunch of doors and kind of got the grunt of the work, I guess you would say. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about sales and building teams. And so I'm super thankful for it. So I did that for about 2 years, worked for other people for about 2 years. And then January of 2021, went on my own, flipped some homes this year or last year, I guess. Flipped a bunch of homes, sold a bunch of contracts. And yeah, now we're here.
Here kicking ass. And so Tino's special talents is that people like him. I don't know if you don't follow Tino, what's your Instagram and Facebook or whatever your handles?
Just everything is Tino Luna. Super simple.
Tino Luna.
Luna, yeah.
Tino Luna on Instagram. So follow Tino Luna on Instagram because he comes up with some of the most creative ways to make our business, let's say, relatable and fun and inspiring. Like it's just like, sometimes you just need that ass kick in the morning. And so if you follow someone like Tino Luna, he's always going to do something to remind you that today's a good day to make a couple bucks.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I want to be known for like high energy, being very transparent and very real and kind of raw, right? I think there's a need for that in the space. So that's my goal.
It's true. The truth and transparency is such a critical thing. Like I just to touch on that for a second. We're going to go into sales today. If you want to learn, sales management and how to work with VAs and how to build that organizational infrastructure to make sure that you leave no leave behind is the way that I like to frame it, right? So if you're here to learn about those things, we're going to get into those things. But the high level, your experience building teams is obvious, but maybe you want to go a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah. So a year ago, January of 2020, I met up with a big investor here in Phoenix. And at that time, it was just him and his partner. They were doing a ton of deals together, but they were looking to scale out of it and then kind of create a mentorship program. And so he brought me on. At first, it was just me calling out of his podio. But the agreement was that my job was to come on and build a team. And so from there, I hired my first acquisition guy. And then at the height of our acquisition, so American acquisition guys, and I'll explain the difference between them and VAs, but at the height of our American acquisition guys and gals, we had eight reps. And so
it's a lot.
If you've built teams, that 8 American reps is quite a bit, and there has to be a lot of lead flow for them to, us to scale that big. Excuse me, my mouth is dry.
You and me both. It's so dry in Arizona, right? Tino's in Arizona. Tino lives in where do you live? Surprise! I remember that one. Surprise! And
way out here.
It's crazy in Arizona. For those, I was in Houston, and it's not the problem because it's always rainy and moist in the air. But like here, my lips just started to like dry out. I'm like, what happened? Yes. But it was just being in Houston for a week where the air is moist to this desert. It's crazy,
especially in the winter. Yeah. So, so we had 8 American reps and a very large team of Filipino VAs. Okay. And so my job.
Can I ask how many Filipino VAs services? 8? I mean, I know you guys had different channels and lead sources, so it's not a perfect science, but how many did you need to fulfill?
At one point we were at 30.
Wow. That's an operation. Yeah.
So it's pretty heavy, and there's a lot of training and setting cultures and just being involved, right? And so at that point, my job went from closing deals, which I was still closing my own deals. Like I was in charge of my own pipeline, but I was also in charge of all the reps. And a really good friend of mine, the first hire that I had there, he helped me with that process and helped manage them. And so that was, it was we scaled pretty quickly, built some systems and processes behind it. And so, that's my extensive background in building teams.
It's awesome. So guys, we're going to do a couple things today. We're going to talk about building teams, sales management strategies, and even if it's one person, it's not, like a team sounds, everyone wants to scale, but scale isn't a reality for many people. Many people are just creating that supplemental income stream. They have a job on top of wholesaling, or they're just getting started in wholesaling, and scaling isn't even a conversation. So whether you have one person on your team or 30 people on your team, creating company culture, we're going to talk about those things, but we're also going to give away some free data. Tom will probably chime in and say what we're actually going to do, but we'll figure out a way to give out a few $100 worth of, win $200 worth of data. It says at the bottom, how to enter, like this Facebook Live, tag your friends in the comments, and we will announce the winner. So we'll do all of those things. So Tino, let's get into it. Tell us about sales management.
So sales management it's like any other management role, really. There's a lot of involvement from the hiring process to the training process to making sure the leads are getting matriculated properly, and unfortunately the firing process as well. And so I kind of learned as I went when I was working for that big investor here in Phoenix. And essentially, the biggest thing I learned about sales management is creating a culture. And there's 2 different cultures, one for your American callers, right? So the in-house, the sales team, the acquisition guys that are taking those inbound leads or cold call leads and transitioning those to contracts. And then there's a culture for the VAs, right? So a lot of people are using VAs in this business. Whether you source them from somebody or you self-source them, the biggest thing you're going to want to do is be involved with them a ton early on and do it for at least a good 3 to 4 months. So, on the onboarding process, creating a true onboarding process of like, hey, this is our company standards. This is our culture. This is what you're walking into. These are kind of our expectations. And so it's very clear from the beginning. And so that's what we did for the VAs. We were in the process of doing that for the American callers, but I got a call. And so, setting that culture. And the way we do that is we have a meeting every day at 10 a.m. from 10 to 10:30, and we go over. It's a very basic meeting, right? We talk to them like they're humans, like they're friends. A lot of people treat their VAs like they're just robots. And if you treat your VAs with humility, or as humans, right, they will bend over backwards for you. And so the way we do that is we have a 30-minute meeting and we ask, hey, what are some wins and losses? If it's a Monday, we say, how was your weekend? How's everybody feeling? And then from there, we go into writing down things that we're grateful for. So everybody has to share, and we go around and we pick 2 or 3 people and we say what we're thankful for, right? And some of it is a repeat, but that just gets the energy up and people feeling thankful and gratitude. Then from there, we go into kind of, like setting the standard, making sure everyone's on the same page. And then 3 times a week, we do call calibrations. So we play the recording for everybody. All the VAs get to listen. And then from there, they will actually chime in before I do. They will chime in and give their 2 cents. And that allows them to learn quicker, right? So when you internalize something and you can teach it to somebody, then you've learned it. And so that's what we make the VAs do and give each other feedback. So that was kind of a long-winded intro to the VA side, but
that's awesome. No, I'm taking notes personally because that's so insightful to just be able to understand like how to create that culture, because creating culture is such a high level buzzword in the corporate world anyways, and it's in every one of the business books that I read. Create company culture. What does that mean? But like, the opening with your grateful statements. Like I have Diego, my 5-year-old, I do the same thing to close out the night when I put him to bed, read a book, and we talk about what we're grateful for. And so I didn't even think about that, applying that to the business world, but what an amazing idea. So good for you.
Yeah. So it's introing with that. And then we exit with words of affirmation. So it's not a long list, but it's like five things. And we cover, we say it, and we end the call with high energy. And I tell them, guys, let's get a deal today. Like, it's got to be high energy. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. If you hire a VA, whether you go through a company or you self-source, and you let them go on their own, you're doing a disservice to yourself, because they're going to go through the motions. They're going to make the calls. But if you're not, creating a relationship with them, bonding and teaching them, then you're just not going to be as successful as somebody that is.
Yeah, that's right. That's awesome. So I get it. So company culture, virtual assistants. You said there's a daily meeting. Let's call it a stand-up from 10 to 10:30. 10 to 10:30. That's just your schedule. It doesn't have anything to do with the workflow, or does that mean something in the structure?
No, that's just our schedule. So when they wake up over there, they work overnight. So that's the easiest time for them to all to get on. And so
that makes sense. That makes sense. And then for the 3 times a week, a call calibration, is that inside of the 30 minutes? Because it seems like because the 30 minutes, it just seems like it's a morale thing. Is that true?
Yeah. So 30 minutes is a morale thing. And then when we do the call calibration, it's typically an hour. So the first 30 minutes is that culture. The last 30 minutes is going to be the calls. We'll do some role play, and then we'll do some feedback. One thing I do that is different from some people, and I really like it, is when we listen to a call and we give feedback, we role play that same exact call. So I'll have two of the VAs do the role play, but they're supposed to lay it out exactly how that call went and see if we made the correction mentally. And that's made a huge difference because when they do it on the spot, they realize, okay, this objection, right? The standard objection of like, oh, well, my wife or whatever. When they handle that multiple times and they role play that, then it just becomes second nature. So the next time we listen to the call, something else might be wrong, but the objection that we worked on that time, it clicks immediately.
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation with Nick, Tino's partner, earlier about how important it is for people that are in a long sales cycle to be able to nurture the communication structure. So like if you're relying on people to have relational conversations with your customer base, with your potential customer base, how critical is it that you set the standard or the tone for the morale, the energy that you want them to convey to the people that you rely on to make money?
Yes. Yeah, it's huge. It's everything. I think it's the difference between our VAs and most VAs.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's cool. So you said that's all virtual assistants, and I understand perfectly. Is it the same pattern for in-house, the acquisition?
It is. It's a little more high level, or not high level, but a little bit more. There's more of a process to it on bringing on Americans. The biggest thing with Americans, and I'm sure you've gone through this, and I'm sorry, my wife was calling. And
do you need to take it?
Can I just text her really quick?
Of course. Family first for all businessmen that have families. It's always that.
We're good. Non-emergency. So
Okay.
well, as far as the Americans, the hiring process is a little bit more rigorous. And then as well, there's a lot of turnover, right? So if you're a good American salesperson, you will want to go start your own business at some point.
Yep.
You're essentially renting that acquisition person. And so one of the requirements is we ask for a year when we hire them. And we know that at the end of the year, they're probably going to go and start their own business, and we will wish them well, and we'll do deals with them, right? Because we flip houses. And so we'll say, hey, after a year, go crush it. All I ask is I want to be one of your VIP buyers, right? But same type culture. We would do meetings in the mornings, right when we got there, try and get the morale high. But it's a little different because a lot of those personalities are self-starters. So on the American side is actually more managing personalities and figuring out ways to push and pull the throttle and make sure you're maximizing it, but making sure they're happy. So yeah, that's the biggest difference.
So that's a full-time job right there, isn't it? I mean, like to do that with a lot of people, it's definitely a full-time job. But like from the majority of the people that are watching right now, it's more so a concept of understanding who you want on your team. So the virtual assistance is the critical function, and then most people are going to be their own Americans. So I guess we probably shouldn't go any farther into that. But it's cool. It's an interesting thought that. At the top level, you have to manage your top level people the way that they need to be in their own unique scenario. And I guess the parallel that I would draw is that you're your own top level guy. So your mental health has to be really, really strong. Your ability to perform as a human for both your business and your family and all of your other life obligations has to be maintained in order for it all not to fall apart like a house of cards, right? You want to speak to that? You run a significant organization, Tino. You want to speak to how you keep yourself strong at the top for those that aren't managing American call teams, acquisitions?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for my mental health and keeping it all together is finding a routine. And you're going to go through your ebbs and flows of the routine. But for me, a critical part of my life is going to the gym. Like it is. So if I'm waking up early, right, in a perfect world, I'm waking up at 4:45. I go to the gym. I do a little bit of manifestation type exercises. Then at 6 o'clock, I wake up the kids and get them ready for school. But the biggest thing is just a routine. And if you don't find that routine, it's going to drive you nuts. Like sales in general is a hard business to be in, and especially real estate sales is pretty tough, right? A lot of people don't give real estate sales credit, but these are big decisions. Some people have never sold their home. This is the first time they're selling their home. And on top of that, if you're a wholesaler, they're selling it for, less than market value, right? Yep. So there's a lot of emotions involved, a lot of follow-up. And so if you're not keeping it together up top, you'll crumble.
Mm-hmm.
You'll crumble pretty quickly.
It's such a good way to say it, because you have to be perfectly on at the very moment that they're ready for you to be on, right? So like if you come into a conversation where they're ready for the close and you don't recognize that they're giving you close clues, right? Then shame on you. You weren't prepared and you're never going to get that. The next guy will. So it's fun to think about like how important it is for your own mental sanity, just like it is to manage American acquisition guys. So it's pretty easy in the end when you think about it, but it's such a critical function. There's a book called, I'm reading a book called The Science of Happiness for everybody that is interested in self-help type books, mental energy and things like that. But The Science of Happiness is really great for.
At some point, I'd love to poke you on your routine and optimize yourself, because I have ADHD, so I'm always fidgeting. I'm always all over the place. I think we spoke about it and you do too, but the way your brain processes and the way you fire, it's impressive. So I'd love to pick your routine.
I'd be happy to.
But going back to sales management, another thing on the hiring process for Americans, I purposely ignore people for a while. So like if they reach out and they submit a resume, I say, okay, sounds good. Let's get together Monday. And then Monday they'll call and I purposely don't answer the phone. And then I do that for a couple more times just to see how many people are truly going to follow through and how many people are going to have that personality. And if they never follow up, they automatically weed themselves out. And if they call me 3 times, I will give them an interview and sit down and talk with them. But more so in sales management, you're looking for the personality. You're looking for the grit in the person. You're looking for someone that's not going to take no for an answer. And you can teach, buzzwords and sales and stuff like that. But if they don't have that internal makeup, they're never going to thrive.
Personality. That's great. So then the hiring is one of the critical roles. So I guess we almost went backwards, because we got to create the culture, which is the most critical function of sales management. But you also have to have the right people. So let's work on who are the right people and how do you get the right people. Hey, before we go into the next topic, I want to say Dom did give us the rules of engagement. $100. Oh, so this is just like these are fun things that we're going to do throughout the event. $100 to the person, 100 coupon dollars, 100 coupon dollars at GeoPoint Data to the person who asks the best question. That's a fun one. I like it, Dom. Okay, cool. So we have Vin and Bam Bam and Amir, and there's a couple people out there hanging out, so it's cool. There's 2 different comments, Tino. I didn't see if you saw that. There's a private
I don't know
comment.
if I can see who's on or.
There's a private comment chat and a comment chat on the right. So if you look at the right one, you'll get to see the interactions that we have here. So cool. I left the door open, so give me 1 second. So we're going to talk about hiring strategies. So Tino, let's talk about strategies for finding the right talent from our virtual assistants, because that's kind of a critical function right now. Text messaging isn't working as well as it used to. Cold calling is a much better way to connect. Older people like it better. And so what do we do? What's the strategy?
So on VAs, you're looking for everyone gets hung up on like, oh, do they have an accent or all this other stuff. You're not looking for that. You're looking for the same thing in an American is, do they have the competence, right, to fulfill the job? Okay, so cold calling, guys, is not. There's no rocket science to it. Our script is super simple. All we're trying to figure out is, are you interested in selling the home at any point? And if you are, and you raise your hand, can we ask you a few more questions to qualify it? So for RVAs, it's the competence. Can you hold the conversation? Can you ask the right questions without, botching essentially just some bullet points? And so a lot of people get hung up on, oh, well, if I get this $9 an hour VA, he's going to close all my deals for me. At the end of the day, if you're looking for somebody to just do volume and bring you leads, they just need to be competent enough to learn your culture, learn the script, and make the calls, right? So that's what I look for in a VA. You can tell in a VA within 2 weeks if they're going to cut it or not. That's my personal opinion. That's usually the length that we give them. We train them for a week. We give them a week on the phones. We see what their production is. For us, a good VA or the expectation is 2 leads a day per VA. And by the second week, if we feel like the conversations are not getting any better, they're not, that production's not coming up, then unfortunately we have to go with somebody that will fulfill that role, right? So
now let me clarify something on 2 leads per day. So yeah, okay, I think I'm going to summarize what you said before I do that. So there's not a highest quality VA and a lowest quality VA. There is a qualification minimum that if you're going to do scaled outbound calling, so we're talking about like triple line dialer, call tools, and call, whatever that might be. So you're making lots and lots and lots of outbound calls. You don't necessarily need the expensive one that is great on the phone. What about like the cringe calls? Like when you make those cringe calls, can they have cringe calls 3 weeks later? Or like when do you say that there's enough is enough?
The cringe calls are more about like the volume of the cringe calls. Like if it's everyone has a bad day or a bad call. Yeah. Shoot, I still have some where, sometimes I'll be toggling between stuff and I forget the seller's name. But I have, the cadence to pick it up and just pick up where I left off. But we do allow for error. It's not like, this military strict type stuff. You'll still have those cringe calls, but if it's happening 2, 3, 4 times a day, then we're kind of like, what's going on? You know what I mean?
So then we have so the encouragement would be to find the cheaper version of outbound cold callers, because as long as they have the right stuff inside of themselves, then they will be just fine. And then make sure that they have those basic qualifications, that they can learn the culture, learn the script, and make the calls. So then you give them a week of training, a week of tests, and then that's a relatively simple machine for people to mimic, right?
Yeah. So, guys, at the end of the day, what you're looking for is somebody to do what you don't want to do, right? Mm-hmm. Just someone to put a headset on for 8 hours and ask people, yes or no, do you want to sell your home? At the beginning, you're going to want your qualifications to be a lot wider, so you're not missing opportunity. As you train them and hone down that funnel, then your leads will get better. But at the very basic level, you're hiring somebody to do what you don't want to do, which is make a ton of calls. There's nothing special you can say to the wrong person. There's nothing wrong you can say to the right person. And so think of it from that frame of mind. And your goal is to get leads into your CRM so that you, the higher level salesperson, can go in and qualify, or in our version, disqualify those leads and figure out which of these leads is going to produce some money, right? So don't overthink the VA thing. There's some great companies out there that provide trained VAs. We personally don't use them because I can train sales. And so it's better for me to find a cheaper VA and train them. So, if that's what you're looking for, there's plenty of companies out there that are doing it. But don't overthink it so much.
I don't know if you saw me literally running from my guest house to the backyard because I had 100% charge when I started talking to Nick earlier today, and I was down to 1%. So the whole thing almost crashed on us. You would have had like
Oh my
3
God.
minutes. So we got lucky on that one. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, perfect. So the VAs. So then. For the hiring, how do you go through all of the applications in order to get to the point where you have a conversation?
So same thing. We give them. We use actually the same Tony Robbins disc
Yep.
that I believe that you do.
Yep, for sure.
And we kind of hone it down by experience also. So if they have a year plus or 2 years of experience, we'll take them and interview them. I believe I'm going to botch your name, but where did you find your VA? So we went on Hubstaff and submitted a job proposal, right? And we started getting some resumes rolling in. I looked through them. In the Philippines, if they have college background, that's great because you know that the aptitude is there. So we usually look at those pretty quick. And then after that would be experience.
Yeah.
So,
great. So what was the name of that platform again?
Hubstaff.
Hubstaff.com. Hubstaff.com is a great place to find VAs. Okay, so then you have a hiring process for the VAs, and then you put the Tony Robbins DISC assessment. That's a free DISC assessment. Just Google Tony Robbins DISC and take it yourself. I mean, the more you can learn about yourself, the better off you're going to be. So take it yourself and then understand what you're going to subject your VAs to. We have a couple ways that we use that process. One is that if they're cold, then we make them do that ahead of time. We don't talk to them unless they take that test. Do you do it ahead of time, or do you have an initial and then have them take it?
No, we do it ahead of time. So that's a requirement for us to talk to them. Same thing with the Americans. So like I said, I'm looking for that personality. So when I send you the Tony Robbins DISC assessment, I've been blessed to the fact that when I was building that sales team for that investor in Phoenix, he has a very big name. So people are hitting him up all the time. Hey, can I come work for you? And so the recruiting process for me was like overwhelming. People were like, I just want to come work for you. And so all I would do is say, okay, take this test. And if they didn't get it to me within an hour, usually I didn't even give them time of day, because someone that's hungry will grab that test and say, okay, I need to sit down, I need to knock this out, and I need to get it right back to him.
Yeah.
You know? So that's one of the things that you can tell. If I give you the DISC assessment, it's got to come back quick.
Yep. That's awesome. That's great. Okay. So then we have how we're finding the callers. We have what to do to screen the callers. We have what to do once you get the callers. You're going to work with them for a week. You're going to test them for a week. And then what else in the sales management strategy are we considering?
I would say so. Yeah, the hiring process, we kind of ran through that.
Yeah.
The onboarding process is an important part, right? You can't hire somebody and expect them to just come in and fulfill the role that you want or that you need. There needs to be clear boundaries, standard of operating procedure. When I was there, we used Trainual a lot. So there's an intro to, hey, this is the company. This is kind of our standard. This is our history. And then there's multiple, tabs to that where it breaks down all the information that person needs to know before they start their job, right?
Yep.
So that's another really important process. Building SOPs for my personality is a pain in the ass. Excuse me, but,
of course.
But it's needed, right? Like if you don't have that, they don't know what they're doing, right? You can sit there and tell them all day till you're blue in the face, but if they don't have something to go back and reference to, then they're lost.
That's right.
So that's another really big thing.
Yep. Vin has a really good question. I think Vin, that question wins $100. I don't know what the qualifications are for the $100 question, but I'm going to give it to Vin. So congratulations, Vin. If you want to reach out to Dom or us on Facebook, we'll send you a $100 GeoPoint coupon. But great question. Do you ever have them submit a voice recording and use it to determine who you hire? Or do you solely base it on the resume and disc assessment?
No. So it's disc assessment if they're cold, like you were mentioning. And then if we like them if they've submitted the disc and we like their resume, then at that point we will do an interview. We don't do voice recording submissions because in my interview, I like to try and do a role play and throw them some pretty tough objections. And what I'm looking for is them not to handle the objection because I can teach them to handle it. I'm looking for the composure in the call. Can they handle themselves? Can they not like wig out completely and lose complete train of thought? If they can handle my objections pretty quickly, then they can move on to the next level.
That's great. That's a really good point. So then, so I was just going to add to that, I guess you can, like when I have a really, really important meeting, it's obvious that I have come prepared because it's a really important meeting. And so why wouldn't someone who's trying to get a job use their absolute best voice, so using the words that they know that they say best? So I could see that a call recording, could be effective in one additional layer. But it probably isn't required because you want to touch these people as quickly as possible, especially if they fit your profile from the disc assessment and the other qualifications.
Yeah, for sure. Colin, that's one of my good buddies from college. So I was a pitcher in college, and he was a catcher, and he's amazing. He has an amazing business in Kansas City, but super long. How does your attitude, demeanor towards your sales guys differ from your attitude with prospects? Sounds like you're pretty tight and intense, wanting to see if they're hungry when you're recruiting. Wonder if it's that way in your sales too. So like I think I'm reading this correctly. Does like my sales process, is that what you're saying, Colin? Like how do I handle prospects in the real estate sales?
I think that he might be referring to the psychology of communicating with humans, because it seems like on one side he's asking, differing from your attitude with prospects, do you give them a longer leash or do you keep it pretty short with the prospects, right? So I think that might be he's saying, sounds like you're pretty tight and intense, wanting to see if they are hungry with your recruiting, that qualification process, right? So he's trying to compare like, how do you work with prospects and the attitude and tone. I know how I would answer that, but I'll let you.
Yeah. So for me, everyone has a different style. I don't say anything fancy. Like I'm very much how you and I are talking. That's how I'm selling. Right. And so my process is I go through and I disqualify as quickly as possible. And I try and figure out why they're not a good fit. And so my style is very aggressive. Not strong. I'm not a jerk about it, but I'm very like, okay, I'm the investor. I'm buying the home. Why do you need to sell to me? Right? Why are we even on the phone? And so that's my approach. And like Nick is very eloquent with his words, and he's got a softer tone, a slower pace. We're just two different sales guys, but he still uses that same disqualification process, just with some nicer, more intelligent words, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Colin, the way that we used to, there's a Steve Trang would frame it probably, because I've been watching some of his stuff, is that when I'm not a sales guy, let's just put that out there on the table. But like, if I was a good sales guy, the way that Steve Trang would describe it is that you have to recognize who you're dealing with on the other end of the spectrum. So if you use that same disc assessment and then you ask questions and they answer in a very direct, concise way, like I'm an engineering brain and you have to give me the details and you have to prove to me that you know the details, or else I don't want to consider you credible on the subject and you've lost my attention long ago. So if you can recognize who you're talking to, that should be the answer to Colin's question, or in my opinion, the answer to Colin's question is recognize who you're talking to and then approach it from that side of the disc.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's part of the process too, but so my biggest thing is disqualifying with the four pillars, the four pillars, and then mirroring and
Four
matching.
pillars are price, condition, timeline, and motivation. Price. So
Yes.
everybody, these are my words that I use all of the time. But if you don't know the four pillars, you should not be making an offer on a house. If you do not have your four pillars figured out, do not make an offer on the house. The four pillars are price, condition, timeline, and motivation.
Yes. So my thing is I disqualify from that basis is the four pillars. Also, big for me is mirroring and matching. So you talk about the psychology of selling. I can tell like a red seller, which is that aggressive. I would qualify you as more of like a yellow or blue, right? You're very analytical. My goal is to, in the first probably 30 seconds of the call, figure out what their tonality is and how can I match it and mirror it, right? So if you are speaking slower, I'm going to slow down my speech. People like to talk to people that are similar to them. Then from there, I can probably break down a psychological profile for you, right? So if you're red, I'm probably not going to challenge you too much, even though like my personality is red, but we'll clash, right? So it'll get us off the phone quickly. So I hope I answered that correctly.
I think so. I think that there's a kind of circle around to Colin. Appreciate the question. It makes sense to, I understand the basis of what he's asking. So that makes plenty of sense. So cool. So we basically covered the main topics, except for the finances of it. So in the last 10 minutes, I'd like to cover how you compensate let's focus on VAs again.
So our VAs make anywhere between $375 and $425. If they do ever bump up, which we're restructuring some stuff right now, and they may potentially, if what will happen is in our Podio, in our CRM, the low hanging fruit, we'll see if this happens, but essentially you can take a $425 VA that has the good skill set, that has the good voice, that has the clarity, and you can level them up to an acquisition person. At that point, they make $6 an hour, and they will go and close the low-hanging fruit, right? Somebody that already has a low number, we've already qualified them down to, hey, we've got the four pillars. All they want is essentially to talk to somebody and then take the next steps.
Yep.
And so you can do that. We're not doing that right now, but we used to do that. And it's very efficient, and they'll even send out the contracts. So that's where we're at as far as VAs.
Yep. So then the price range 425, and so Philippines. Where else are you considering callers as you look for virtual assistants?
So we're actually considering Colombia as one of our sources. From what I've heard, I know a guy in the dental space, and they do something very similar. He provides leads to like different dentistries, I guess you would say. And so he has a cold calling team in Colombia, and the way that they connect with humans, he feels is better. So that human approach is a little bit better. But I don't know how it's going to work financially, because at the end of the day, you know this, Destin, a cold caller is a cold caller is a cold caller. So I'm not going to pay, $8 an hour in Colombia just because their accent's more American and they can connect a little bit better. At the end of the day, it's all volume. It's all going to even out.
That's exactly. So on the finances, so the bonus structure, did you touch on a level 1 bonus structure? So there's the hourly, and I didn't hear a clear answer on that side, or maybe I missed it.
No. So on the bonus structure, we usually give about $150 to our cold callers for every deal that we close, and it has to go all the way through, closing.
Yep.
Right. Not just contract, but yeah, it's $325 to $375 to $425, and then $150 bonus for every contract they close.
Yep. So the next question was something that I think I think we answered it while he was typing the question, but do you pay a percentage of assignment to your VA acquisitions or your virtual assistant for acquisitions as well? Acquisitions and dispositions. So maybe he is just saying acquisitions, which is what we just said. So $150 per acquisition.
Yeah, there's no percentage for them. It's just $150 flat.
Yep. Okay. Super. Well, I think I think that we covered it. We got the hiring, we got the money, we got the culture, and firing. Is there a reason when you say, hey, listen, we've had a great relationship, but it's a performance orientated thing? Help us understand when you give up on somebody.
Yeah, so this is actually, I was hoping you'd bring this up. The way we fire people is we raise the standards pretty high, right? Not so it's unattainable, but they're going to have to work their butt off. And so we just come in and we say, hey guys, this is the new standard. And this is typically for people that are just not performing, right? So we say, we don't want to let you go, but there is a standard in the company and this is it.
Yep.
It's a high standard. And we say, if you can't hit this in the next month, then after that, we're going to have a conversation and see where we're headed. Is it that we're not coaching you enough? Is it that you're not, maybe not doing enough, or it's just not a good fit for you?
Sure.
And so that's how we essentially fire people. And 9 times out of 10, when they see that standard, they'll actually weed themselves out.
Yeah. No, of course. Yeah. It's it's a culture thing. In the end, if you can't perform, if you can't make the cut, then it's not the company's fault. It's not the caller that everybody else is. So it becomes a moral, personal thing. And that's where Tino is really doing a really great job, is that he's creating that moral foundation for these people to give them the strength that they need outside of their own lives. Like many people's lives, especially the VAs that are making calls, it's difficult. They're in lower income areas and they have lots of kids and the life is hard. So, if you can give them the moral support in the job place, then you give them the best chance of performing. But then in the end, this is a business and some people just won't be able to cut it.
Yeah. I mean, and don't take that the wrong way. Like you're saying, we nurture our people, like we care for our people, but at the same time, like raising those standards and potentially weeding them out of the company is also from a caring standpoint. Like we don't have that conversation and say, hey, you're not cutting it. It's, hey man, I love you, but you're not making enough money right now for you, like to feed yourself, to feed your family. And I'm just trying to figure out, is it us? Is it maybe you're not a good fit? And so everything comes from a loving standpoint. And I never wanted to create that culture of like a boiler room, right? Or it's dog eat dog. It's definitely, we love on people and make sure that they're taken care of.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, that's really great. Anything else from a closing thoughts on sales management?
No, I don't think so. I feel like we got hiring, we got the onboarding process. The biggest thing is to build a culture. To lead from the front is big too, guys. When I was building that team and now I try and make the most phone calls out of anybody, just so nobody can say, hey, you're just demanding people around, and then it'll raise your troops behind you. Right. So if you're making a ton of calls and you're hungry and you're in the trenches, they're going to want to follow that. And so that's part of culture as well.
That's exciting. Well, it's awesome. All right. So motivational things for the new year. Is there any good words, anything that you can give everybody as a parting encouragement to go out there and kick some ass?
Motivation, I would say, stop overthinking and just go do it. Yeah. That's I feel like what a lot of people struggle with, whether it's you want to go hire a VA or you want to make the calls yourself. Make 2022 the year of action and stop. I love everybody, but you can only buy so many courses. At some point, just go do it. Right? So 2022, make it the year of a ton of action. Take a ton of imperfect action.
Imperfect action. It's such a great way to say it. Imperfect action, because if you're not doing anything, then you can't. There's a success mechanism, right? And so if you haven't been able to make your bed in the morning, then you didn't get that win in your body, and you're not going to get the next win and the next win and the next win. So go take that win that you can find in round one, and then round two will become easier. Ashley Johnson's an amazing human. Good to see you, Ashley. Thanks so much for everybody for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we will see you guys soon on Tech Data to Me. Tino Luna on Instagram. Follow him for your morning business inspiration. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, guys.